So you guys know the title of my talk is Asking for Help is Not a Burden, It's a Connection, right? So I have to ask you for a big favor today. Is that okay? If you see me struggling during my conversation, can you please cheer me on? Is that okay? Thank you. I want to tell you about an evening 2 years ago when I attempted to swim across Lake Tahoe. As to the why behind my decision to take on a 21-mile open water, freezing 65-degree, no wetsuit swim, I'll get back to that in a bit later. But first, let me tell you what a friend of mine said when I shared what I was thinking. It was back in the early days of the pandemic, and we were having one of those virtual calls everyone seemed to be having back then. Do you remember those? What I remember is the look on Marilyn's face as she leaned across the table and looked me in the eye. "Girl," she said, "you need help." I laughed, and she laughed, and so did I. I knew that she was joking and that she would support me no matter what I did, because she is that kind of a friend, you know? The one who will tell you your ideas are wild and then be with you the whole way anyway. But here's the thing. When she said I needed help, she had no idea how right she was. It wasn't just that I wouldn't be able to do the swim alone and that I would end up needing more and all kinds of different help than I expected. I didn't know how to ask for it. And there was a big part of me that didn't want to. That is true for a lot of us. Even when we know we need help, we don't ask for it. We worry we look weak. We think asking for help is admitting that we've failed. If you know where you're going, after all, you don't ask for directions. The way of thinking gets ingrained in us very early on. For years, psychologists believed it wasn't until 9 or 10 years of age that kids started to worry about seeming different if they asked for help. A new and expansive study last year reached to a different conclusion, and it showed this type of concern. Worry to be perceived as less than others because we need help can be perceived in the behaviors of children as young as 7. What would be ideal, and this is the kind of thing that we see a lot in movies, is where help comes out of the blue. But then we don't just worry about what others are going to think. When we ask for help, we make ourselves vulnerable. And when we're trying to control everything, we worry others won't do things the way we do. Sounds familiar? And then we think it's a hassle, that we're putting a burden on the other person. And all of that makes us worry that we're going to be rejected when we ask for help. What would be ideal, and this is the kind of thing that we see a lot in movies, is a random act of kindness where help comes out of the blue without anybody asking. Picture this. You're in line at the drive-thru, and the person at the pickup window ahead of you pays for your meal. That would be great, but it also rarely happens. Studies have shown that help just doesn't work like that, and that we can only get the majority of help after somebody has asked for it. And that's not because people don't want to give it. Oftentimes, people don't offer help because they don't know that it's needed or that others might want it. It's a catch-22. We know that we can get the help we need after we ask for it. And asking for it is the last thing many of us are going to do. That was definitely the case for me when I made up my mind to swim across Lake Tahoe. But let me back up a little and tell you why I wanted to attempt it in the first place. It's hard for me to talk about it even now. It was back in the first days of COVID, and 3 of my dear friends died in the same week. It was the kind of loss that doesn't just leave you empty and angry, but deeply confused. It makes you question who you are as a person and your understanding of how life works. I found myself shutting down, retreating, and for me, the only way out of the negative spiral was to attempting something way beyond myself. It was then that I hit up on the idea of breaking a world record and becoming the first Latina to swim across Lake Tahoe while dedicating each mile of the swim to a different social cause. It would be 21 miles for 21 social causes. Right away, I knew I had to dedicate myself to it. But if I was going to do this, I would need help. So much help. I knew how to swim, but I was by no means a competitive swimmer, and I didn't know how to train for long-distance swims. How do I put this on paper? I asked a former swimming coach, and he helped me put a training plan together. Later on, I reached out to another coach who helped me, and it grew from there in ways I never imagined. But of course, it didn't stop there. Soon enough, it became clear that I wanted to fundraise for the 21 social causes. That was not easy. You think asking for help is hard? Try asking for money. I reached out to one of my friends, and she encouraged me to think bigger. So I would ask people to sponsor each mile of the swim while others donated to the campaign. There was a website and social media pages, and the swim opened up to the world. It was then that I got hit by something I didn't really see coming. As my training intensified and the date of my swim neared, flashbacks of childhood trauma came up. I don't know what triggered them, but I knew I had to deal with them. I know there's so many people out there who have gone through similar situations, who have carried a secret, and who know what it feels to be alone and feeling so worthless. Vulnerability did a number on me. I had just lost my 3 dear friends. I was faced with the fact that my childhood had been taken away from me, and I had to live with the reality of it in the present. I was a triple mess. You need help, Marilyn said. She had no idea how right she was. Getting the help you need starts by asking for it. I didn't know where to start, and many times I didn't know what I needed. But people came through, one after another. I know that's hard to believe, but it's true. As species, we're hardwired to help, hardwired for empathy, to care for others and how they're doing, and to want to make things better for them. That's what I discovered. And if you don't believe me, believe the literal dozens of studies that have shown people are happier and better themselves after helping others. Most people around you are like that. Most people are like that. They want to help. They're just waiting for you to ask them. Asking for help, my friends, is not a burden. It's a chance at connection. It's allowing yourself to be vulnerable enough and trusting another person to share the knowledge with them. It isn't easy to do when your mind is clouded and you're feeling unsure. And when it all seems like too much, when we most need help, it's when it's hardest to ask for it. But don't let that stop you. There are more people who want to be in your corner with more knowledge and more expertise than you know. It's your job to invite them in. Now, you're probably wondering what happened with the swim. Whether I made it across Lake Tahoe, and if I reached that opposite shore. What it felt to break the world record. The fact is, I didn't make it. And even though I felt like a failure, my people made me feel like a queen. The date of the swim was set for August 7, 2021. And even before I got in the water that evening, the air was thick with smoke from the Caldor fire that was burning across California. I swam for as much and as long as I could, pressing on despite the terrible conditions. When the time came to get out of the water, I had to ask for help. My people were there to give it to me. But more importantly, I was able to ask for it. I have a last favor to ask you. Hug yourself, super tight, across everybody. Hug, hug, hug yourself. Okay, you can let go now. I want to leave you with this. Maybe it'll be today. If not today, tomorrow. When the time comes for you to ask for help, I want you to trust people. Those you know and those you don't know enough to ask for it. You don't have to know what you need or even who you need to ask, but take the first step. If you don't know how to ask for help, say that you don't know how to ask for help. And then wait and watch. Help will be on its way. Thank you.